of Zelda. In this series I make custom stylized versions of famous Legend of Zelda landmarks. In the second part, I'm making the Temple of Time. In the first episode, I made this Hyrule castle, so if that interests you, it's linked down below, and I highly recommend you check it out. As with Hyrule Castle, this build won't be any specific version of the temple, but rather a combination of all of them with some creative license thrown in. Let's start building. As with any build, the foundations came first. I definitely wanted something big or grand, but it was important not to make something so big it'd make the castle seem too small. Obviously the next step was to start filling it in with stone brick, the main material of the walls. Sorry for the poor camera angle, but if you really squint just enough, you can see me planning out a back room at the far end of the main chamber. This will house the Door of Time. Just behind that, I'm building a circular room, which will be the Master Sword Chamber. Now my initial plan for the floor was to do a simple black and white checkered design, but I couldn't quite find the right size for the squares. So eventually, I just settled on a plain stone floor that I'll detail later. I know it's technically cheating, but I didn't want to deal with all these blocks by hand, so I just used /fill to get rid of them all. A big difference you might notice is the second floor. In the original temple designs, the main chamber is all on one single level. However, I thought this direction would look more interesting and also work with the environment, given that it's on a slope. Moving on to the front of the temple, it has a very distinctive shape and design, whether it's intact in Ocarina or decimated and wild. I wanted to maintain the three-tower design as best I could. I also wanted to maintain the amount of windows on the front to make it even grander. Of course, this comes with the circular stained glass window on the front of the middle tower. Then come the two side towers. I wanted the bases to be strong and stable looking, so I made a block of polished andesite. After adding some shape to the windows and door frame, I put a mini Triforce above the door. Again, I wanted the side towers to be bulky and strong, so I added an andesite bracing on each side. Just for some detail, I made some arches above the windows. I used simple white stained glass for the normal windows, and a fiery mix of red, orange and yellow for the stained glass one. Then I extended the main tower just a smidge, so I could get an idea of where the roof will go. It'll just be a basic cone roof, so I'll just do it off camera. Now properly focusing on it, I build the tower up to its full height and begin on its roof. In-game, it's sort of a cone shape, so I replicated that as best I could. It wasn't too hard, it just took a good mix of slabs and stairs to get it right. At this point in time, the roof felt like it was just kind of stuck on top, so I made an andesite brace as if to hold it in place. Then I made a simple stone slab and cobblestone decorative design just to fill in some empty space. I opted to make the top of the body of the tower into an andesite arch, just to fill it out a little. I added some supports on the side, just to add a little bit more depth and realism to the roof. Now, moving on to the inside, I made a physical door, added some stripped logs and levers for some faux handles. As is typical in cathedral-like builds, I made an archway above the door and simply wrapped some framing around the upper windows. I filled in the pillars that hold the central tower up, and then added some simple details just to flesh out the upper section of the interior. To finish off the secondary towers, a smaller cone-esque roof was required. Moving back into the interior, you can see I've placed down a central triforce and measured out the pillars that will take up the room. Now I'm simply making the platform from Ocarina which you warp to. Simply raise up a block, it sports stone brick stairs as a stave, and polished diorite making the notes to the Song of Time. Now for the carpeting. I wanted it to emit light, so of course I used the classic glowstone under carpet. The sides being actual carpet blocks in order to hide the glowstone gives it a tiny little bit of depth. For the staircase leading up to the upper level, I went for one on either side to add to the grandiose nature. Since there's no carpeted stair blocks, it would have to be simple stone stairs. Then just some simple stuff. A couple of pillars and banisters for the stairs. One of the main things missing were the large side windows, seen pouring light into the main chamber. I wanted these to be grand, so I had them sit a few blocks up above the ground. Then, as is standard with these builds, some andesite went around the edge for mini pillars and depth for the wall. There's not really a lot I can say for this kind of decoration, it just kinda happens to add detail and fill empty space. I wanted windows on the upper level too, but obviously the walls were much more shallow. I experimented with some andesite, but settled for something less bulky in the end. I decided I wasn't happy with the large Triforce, it looked too cartoonish. Originally the Altar of Time was to be up on the upper level, but I thought this would be perfect for the altar. This was perhaps the hardest part of the build to perfect, so it went through the most iterations. As you can see, my first instinct was to embed the spiritual stones into the wall as a more permanent part of the temple, but that didn't work out. Then I tried having them on pedestals coming out the wall, but I scrapped that idea too. For the altar itself, I tried with quartz and nether brick. but it didn't look right, so I settled for dark prismarine. Still, I wasn't really happy with the stones, so I lowered them a block. Although cheaty, I finally settled for custom playheads to represent them. You could just as easily use the 4 blocks, but I prefer this personally. I had a large portion of void to fill under the windows, so I tried using a dead coral border to separate out a very experimental floor design. I struggled with this part too. My first port of call was the black and white checkered design, but I assumed that'd be too garish, so I stuck with stone variants for now. Eventually I did come to my senses, and I just used the checks, and it looks a lot better than I thought it would. Now I simply copied over the carpeting design to the upper level. I rounded off the entrance to the back room with a little arch and started on the Door of Time. I used andesite to make some nice decorative angled lines across the back wall, and opting for a simple staircase up, I connected the carpet and fixed the flooring. The ceiling was quite simple, just being slabs meeting at a point in the middle. The exterior appearing roof, however, I made off camera to just be a cone like the main roof. The sword chamber was hard to proportion. In the games, it's massive, too big to sit inside the structure as seen from the outside. Wanting to strike a balance, I made the chamber large, but not too large. The centre held, of course, the plinth for the Master Sword. It took a while to get the design of the whole middle part right, but I just went for some simple stone and stone slab trickery. For the floor, I just used the checks design as it fits the temple as a whole well. I decided having the interior of the main chamber's roof come to a point would be boring, so I decided to have a concave middle piece, the likes of which are often found in cathedrals. Moving on to the outside, I added in some andesite pillars and simple arch detailings. For the smaller window area, I used some thicker pillars. I tried out making some supports and buttress roots, but it didn't quite fit the style and I quickly decided against them. With some final slabs and stairs adhered to the wall, I moved on to the front of the temple. I wanted an entrance similar to Ocarina, where it goes to the left before turning right into the building. I also wanted to incorporate the water feature found in the same game, which I think adds to the juxtapositional nature of the temple, it being a grand, important building, but also calm and quaint. I also thought having a flower feature would help add some nice detail. Onto the penultimate task, finishing off the Master Sword chamber. I wanted the window to be tall and stand out, but still be small and shine light onto the podium. I decided straight ahead was best. As with the decoration of the area in other games, I kept the pillars and detailing tight to the wall so as to not detract from the scale or importance of the room. In my opinion, it's best when it feels secluded from the rest of the temple. The roof of the chamber is a hemisphere in Ocarina, so I went for the same thing here. There's not much to say other than it took a great deal of slabs and stairs to get it right. To decorate the outside of the chamber, I didn't want to detract from the rest of the build, so I merely replicated the detail from the inside and added a couple of flourishes, nothing too special. I was just about finished, but the roof was too flat and bland. Looking at the temple's representation in other games, there's often two sets of windows vertically, but this design only had one. To maim two birds with one stone, I added in some roof-based windows poking out, which added some well-needed shape. With these windows and everything else replicated, mirrored and built up, there was only one last thing to do, in the form of adding in cracked bricks and block variation. And there we are, the finished Temple of Time. It was very fun to build, and I think it encapsulates the feel of the temple really quite well. I did add a wing crest just above the Door of Time as one final finishing flourish, but that's it done. The temple has been completed. If you'd like to see me make more Zelda builds, be sure to check out the first video if you haven't already, and subscribe for future parts. Hopefully they'll be coming out a lot more often from now on. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave feedback or suggestions for future builds in the comments, and please do subscribe and stick around for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.